Did you know Montel uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to forecast spot prices, inflow to reservoirs, wind and run-of-river production? We can improve forecast for your individual power plants anywhere in Europe. Contact us at ai@montelnews.com for more info.
Hello listeners, and welcome to the Montel Weekly Podcast, bringing energy matters in an informal setting. This week, we're in Turkey, and we're looking at the country's ever-expanding energy sector. Turkey has seen demand growth of about 5 to 10% annually, but it has slowed down a bit under the COVID pandemic. Here we are to discuss what this means for the country's energy transition, and helping me, Richard Sverrisson, to discuss this is Nazli, my colleague based in Istanbul. A very warm welcome to you, Nazli.
Hi, Richard.
So, Turkey and the energy transition. What are the country's plans? What are its ambitions here?
Well, I think Turkey has been quite successful in introducing renewable generation into the mix. We have seen almost the double of the installed capacity in the last decade. And we currently have quite a successful energy mix. And I think it's on the agenda, the energy transition, for a couple of reasons. First of all, to reduce the carbon emissions, but also reduce the reliance of imported fuels as well, which is a big issue. And also create domestic jobs like manufacturing, producing the parts of the solar panels, wind panels. So I think the country is taking this very seriously.
So it's kind of a win-win in a way, isn't it? You're reducing the dependence on now, which are currently very expensive fossil fuels, but you're also generating your own industries in terms of renewables, both manufacturing, not just solar and wind, but also EVs, so I've read.
Yes, well, we are not yet very forward with the electric vehicles yet, because there are no tax incentives for the end users yet. But I think it's going to be there, and it's going to be a big part of the demand growth within the short to mid-term. It's calculated around like 10-15% demand growth. You know, we are a very big country, and a lot of cars as well.
As I've discovered here in Istanbul.
Yes.
It's a little bit crazy. Maybe the EVs will alleviate some of the emissions and the pollution that you see in the bigger cities. But if we go back to the renewables growth, what's in the biggest expansion? Has it been wind or solar or a combination of the two?
Both, but we also have a big installed capacity in hydropower plants. That's a big thing for Turkey. And apart from that, both solar and wind almost doubled in the past couple of years. There has been a big interest from Turkish companies, foreign companies, and also the biggest reason was the feed-in tariffs. The government is looking to incentivize these projects, so it was an interesting investment.
So that's my next question, really, is like how are these projects financed? It comes directly through feed-in tariffs or through government subsidy?
Yes, usually these projects are financed with companies, a part of companies' equity, together with the financing banks, like biggest Turkish banks. Also, because these are subject to feed-in tariff, it's a win-win situation for both parties. Predictable. The feed-in tariffs up until this year were in US dollars, in foreign currencies, and the banks were financing these with foreign currencies as well. That's the tricky part now.
Of course, because the Turkish lira maybe has not been so stable.
Yes. So if you look at it from, let's say, 2013, the US dollar currency almost quadrupled in 8 years. And then these feed-in tariffs, let's say, from this year, they're going to be in Turkish lira. But the financing are still in foreign currency, and there's a big investment risk there.
Absolutely.
So in the past year, we've seen many refinancings from the banks together with the investing companies. I even know some companies have did refinancing 3 times in the past 3 years.
Seriously?
Yeah, because it's the currency is quite unpredictable.
The Turkish lira has been quite weak compared to the US dollar. That makes it very, very expensive for the government. Is it looking at any ways to look at merchant projects or subsidy-free issues? Is that on the agenda at all in Turkey?
Yeah, there are Turkey. I have to say, Turkey is very ambitious about the green projects. So there are YEKA tenders, which are around 1,000 megawatts for solar, 1,000 megawatts for wind power, and they are with purchasing guarantees. So the country is looking into expanding these.
And this is an annual tender or an annual auction?
Yeah, both for the plant itself and manufacturing and creating jobs.
Are PPAs at all a big thing in Turkey so far? Power purchasing agreements, 5 or 10-year, 15-year?
With the renewables?
Yeah.
I think they are in the horizon, but not yet.
Because the expansion or the growth is still in the early phases. That's maybe comes when a lot of these subsidies sort of reach the end of their lifespan, or the plants that have been under subsidies, then maybe the PPAs.
Yeah, it's not yet a big thing, but I think it will be soon with the industries and within the companies. I think so.
What are the concrete objectives that Turkey has, Nasli, in terms of, so-and-so? We have, in some countries want to achieve so-and-so. I mean, in the EU, you want to achieve a certain percentage by 2030 or net zero by emissions by 2050. Does Turkey have any concrete plans for 2030 or 2050?
Well, yes. I think I could summarize it by saying Turkey's most important strategy is to reduce the reliance on imported fuel. And this comes with renewable energy and mostly, obviously. So I think that's the number one priority at the moment. Obviously, together with reducing the carbon emissions, but we don't really have the same specific aims as the EU. But obviously, EU is a big trading partner with Turkey. We have imports and exports. So I think many businesses will have to use the certificates like guarantees of origin.
So that's going to be of growing importance, you think, those sectors?
Absolutely. I think we'll be growing parallelly with the European regulations.
Excellent. We're sitting here in your office in Istanbul. I can look out the window. It's very sunny. Turkey's a very sunny country. So what's the outlook for the household sector in terms of solar?
There are some developments there. The regulations have been eased on it, but I think so far it's not a big thing yet because the investments are still higher than the power bills, let's say, for households. So I think it's a growing sector, but it's not exactly the fastest growing at the moment.
So maybe that's one of the challenges going forward is the cost of the energy transition. Is that an obstacle in expanding perhaps more rapidly than Turkey could?
Well, yes and no, because the alternative I think is more expensive. The high gas prices and high coal prices, and I think the renewable energy is, in the end, it's the cheapest, and I think no.
Of course,
it shouldn't be no, but
you mentioned hydropower as well. Is Turkey building new hydropower plants?
Turkey has a lot of hydropower plants. There are almost around 30,000 megawatts, I think. There are run-of-river and with dam type hydropower plants, and there are very big ones as well on the biggest rivers. At the moment, I think there are maybe a couple in the pipeline, but not really.
But I'm also reading of geothermal. I mean, geothermal has quite potential in Turkey.
Yes, they're also inside the feed-in tariffs at the moment. They have 10-year purchasing guarantees from the government. It's growing, but it's still smallest after biomass. So wind and solar has been the biggest ones so far.
It kind of makes sense. Yeah. It's kind of, there are windy parts of Turkey, there are sunny, and it's very sunny. So it does make sense.
Absolutely.
If we turn to fossil fuels, I mean, there's still a lot of gas and coal being burnt in Turkey.
Yeah.
Is the country still building new coal-fired and gas-fired plants?
CCGTs at the moment, no. Coal power plants, I think it will be hard to find a bank to finance coal power plants from now on.
Absolutely.
Generally speaking. I don't think so. When it comes to nuclear as a base load, we have a project in Mersin Akkuyu, which is around 4,800 megawatts. And it's going to be operational, I think, around 2023. That's the aim. It's going to be that. I mean, it's going to be hard to find the gas or coal investor.
But nuclear is the country seriously wants to go for nuclear.
Yes, there were 3 projects. 2 of them are, I'm not sure if they're going to be operational. One of them, I think, is cancelled lately. But Mersin Akkuyu, the place is there, the equipment is there. And I think the government the purchasing guarantees are there, so it's going to be operational, I think.
So who's building that? Which kind of technology in terms of nuclear? Is it Russian-based, French-based?
It's Russian-based.
It's
Russian-based,
okay. Because when you look at what's happened to some of the European pressurized reactors that are being built in Finland and in France, and also plans in the UK, the massive cost overruns, delays, almost. It's quite incredible to see. Some of them are very controversial now. And, people I spoke to on this pod, doubt whether they'll even come online as planned. Anyway, what makes Turkey so sure that it can maybe avoid the traps that France and Finland have walked into?
I think, again, it's the reason to reduce the political reliance and on imported fuels. Well, nuclear is also, but in a sense, it's a big baseload power plant. And I think the project was set when the demand growth was big and was expected to be increasing, but maybe we don't need it so much right now.
So that maybe raises some question marks about the whole project, or?
I think it's going to be operational in the end, but we will see what happens in 2023. We have elections coming.
Okay, so that could change the picture.
Yeah. It could. It could.
So you mentioned, and I mentioned in the intro about demand growth. 10 years ago, there was phenomenal demand growth. And also the country was growing at a phenomenal pace. So that's since slowed down. How has that affected the power sector? Actually,
I could say that 15 years ago, the total population was 70 million, right? Now it's around 81. So it's a big demand growth with young population, and also globally there was liquidity and we were attracting investment as well. But at the moment it has changed a bit with dropping the value of the Turkish lira, dropping investments. So I think the scenario is a bit different at the moment.
But in terms of the electrification of transport, we touched on a little bit with EVs earlier. Is that something that's being clearly thought out or planned for getting fossil fuel cars and not just cars, but trucks and heavy goods vehicles off the road and being replaced by electric ones?
I think hydrogen is an idea lately. Turkey has been interested in it. The minister has been talking about this technology. With trains and mobility, hydrogen could be an idea. I think definitely there will be an interesting step with EVs, but nothing concrete yet.
But is there a hydrogen strategy that's been planned or been written? I mean, is it in terms of blue hydrogen, which is...
I think it's going to be grey hydrogen, and that's the idea. It's very in the beginning phases of planning, but I think it's included in the midterm strategy at the moment with hydrogen.
That's very interesting. But I think the other aspect I wanted to touch upon with you, Nazli, was lignite. Turkey still burns a lot of lignite. Is it developing its own lignite plants?
Yes, we have more or less 10,000 megawatts of lignite power plants. And I can say that it's the only fossil fuel that we have in Turkey. We have a big area in Zonguldak. So yes, we are currently using lignite and also incentivizing.
Really?
Yes, there's a capacity mechanism in place, which is a purchasing guarantee from lignite and hydro power plants.
It's a quite contradiction here, isn't there? Because on the one hand, there's a big rollout of wind, of solar, very reliant on hydropower, but at the same time, there's lignite burning going on a massive scale, which is one of the most dirtiest fuels imaginable to produce power.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think as far as the lives of these power plants, they will be operational.
Yeah, and I think as long as they exist, maybe the country will struggle to reduce some of its carbon emissions.
Yeah.
There was a few years ago, there was talk of Turkey being a kind of gas hub, taking the gas from parts of Azerbaijan, from the Caucasus, and into southern Europe. Is that still being talked about, or has that sort of disappeared a bit?
No, absolutely. Actually, we have APH, the Energy Exchange. There's a new gas market, and it's operational. Soon in October, there will be gas futures trading market. I think it's going to be an important thing in the Turkish gas sector. But the main obstacle is that BOTAŞ, the country's gas company, is handling all the contracts and most of the market. So we cannot say yet that it's a liberal market yet, but it should be.
It's getting there.
I think so, absolutely.
Is there any domestic gas production?
Very little. Very little.
I mean, if you see the prices currently being traded for gas in Europe, we've never seen these highs. I mean, is there any chance that some of the gas can flow by Turkey into Europe, or there's some more come that way?
Yeah, and also, currently there is very little gas production in Turkey. But there were discoveries recently, that the Black Sea discoveries, which are estimated to be around 540 BCM, and considering we spend around 55, it's almost 10 years demand for Turkey. I think that discovery, when it becomes operational, it's going to help Turkey to become a gas hub as well. That's, I think, the plan.
Let's talk a little bit about the foreign firms that are active in Turkey. Who are the main firms, and what are they up to?
I can say that since the early 2000s, there were many foreign firms active in many businesses. But recently, in the last couple of years, I think we can say that we see some fleeing companies or reducing their presence in Turkey. This is not just in energy, but automotive, telecom, textile. This, I think, is a result of, I can say, political instability and the risk premium of the country. So we see less foreign companies at the moment, but Turkey definitely needs foreign investment.
But do you still think then Turkey is an attractive place for foreign companies to come and invest, or is there more the flight going out of the country?
Well, I think Turkey needs to do an economic recovery program, which will include political stability and among many other things. And then the foreign investment will follow. Well, like I said before, Turkey needs the foreign investment. I think we're looking at political and economical reforms once again. And
then maybe that will stimulate more companies looking to come in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the country has these amazing resources. It has the wind, it has the solar, as we mentioned, the hydropower, and also geothermal. So once the ball gets rolling, there should be, ample opportunities for people to be active in these sectors, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Nazli, thank you very much for joining the Montel Weekly Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So listeners, you can now follow the podcast on our own Twitter account, aptly named the Montel Weekly Podcast. Please direct message any suggestions, questions, or, let us know if you think you have a good idea for a guest on the show. You can also send us an email to podcast@montelnews.com. Lastly, remember to keep up to date with all that's happening in energy markets on Montel News. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Thank you and goodbye.